Just to let people know, tonight's iftar is going to be a little bit different than how we've been doing it the last few nights. Typically, we've just been having people line up to get food, and I'll reiterate this at Maghrib time. But today, food is going to be served to you. So immediately after Maghrib, just come down, we've plated. We're doing a fundraiser with Islamic Relief USA. Alhamdulillah, we've already raised $165,000. We're trying to get to about $500,000 at a minimum in Ramadan. Inshallah, we'll be able to reach that goal. There's about 23 million people on the brink of starvation right now in Afghanistan, and we'll make things easy for all of them. The estimates project that by the end of this year, close to 1 million children under the age of 5 will likely pass as a result of food insecurity. And so we want to do what we can today to support the good work Islamic Relief is doing. So the program tonight will have Sheikh Fayal start. I'll do a dua if there's time permitting going into Maghrib. After Maghrib, if you come back and take your seats, Sheikh Sahib Webb will share some reflections shortly after. Then we're going to have our sister Sana from Islamic Relief USA. She's going to talk for a few minutes, show us the video, and then Brother Anwar Khan from Islamic Relief USA, who was in Afghanistan recently, is going to just share with us some of what he saw on the ground there, testimonials, and we'll close up, inshallah, before the Sheikh comes in. Yeah. Great. You guys want to move over this way so that when people come in, they're not. And then it's.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى محمد. In an oft-quoted verse in chapter 2 of the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي أَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. O Messenger, when my servant asks you about me and asks me if I am, and asks me where I am, then tell him that I am he. It is stated in this famous report that one day a man, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Ya Rasulullah, Rabbuka ba'idun fa'unadi, aw qaribun fa'unaji. O Messenger of God, is your Lord so far away that I need to call out loudly? Or is he close by such that I can whisper? To which God reveals this verse to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and again he states, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. That when he asks about me, then tell him that I am he. And in this month of Ramadan, where so much of our conversations, our rituals, our prayers, our dua, our conversations, all speak toward this idea of drawing closer to God via my deeds or my actions or my charity or whatever it may be. People often ask, what exactly does it mean then to be close to God? What does it mean when I say that I want to get closer to God? In fact, before we perform our prayers in some schools of Islamic law, it's an obligation that before they perform any act of legal ritual, meaning any obligatory act, be it prayers or wudu or wearing of the ihram or making tawaf around the Kaaba or even performing the fast every morning, that you have to set the intention and say physically that I'm performing X and Y and Z, qurbatan ila Allah ta'ala, that I am performing this deed in order to seek proximity and closeness to God. What exactly does it mean when I say that I want to get closer to God? What does it mean exactly when I say that I am seeking proximity to my Creator? There are three different opinions amongst theologians historically with regards to what exactly it means when we talk about proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first one suggests that every single time that we perform any act of goodness, any act of virtue, that in some sort of physical realm, that we are bringing ourselves physically closer to God. And that after we die, we will be in the company of God in a physical manifestation. Muslim scholars have long rejected this notion and idea based on other verses of the Quran that state, for instance, that God has no like to him and there's nothing similar to him. So when I talk about God in any sort of physical capacity, obviously we don't accept this notion. A second opinion states that when we talk about this notion or this idea of physical proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not talking about physical proximity to God himself, but rather it's talking about physical proximity toward God's rewards and blessings that he descends upon us. Let me give you an example. In the whole Quran, like we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks a lot about paradise, talks a lot about hell. Oftentimes we only hear that. But when we hear the descriptions of paradise with such tangible meanings as God presents it within the whole Quran, really it's something incredibly inspirational and something incredibly motivational for us to just glance through these verses to see what it is that we're going to be able to obtain. God tells us about, sitting on reclined couches and eating fruits and, enjoying all of these wonderful meals and being in the company of our loved ones and all of these things. And again, truly, when you read those verses, you desire to be in that paradise, inshallah, in the company of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But though the fact that theologians historically have sort of rushed toward this opinion and stated that when we talk about spiritual proximity, or we talk about this idea of proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it's in reference to the fact that you're close or getting closer toward these physical or tangible rewards, sounds pretty shallow, right? Think about it. The only thing, a lot of times you ask somebody, why is it that you fast during Ramadan? Why is it that you hold steadfast to all of these obligations and stay away from the prohibitions and perform the recommendations and so on and so forth? Why are you so fixated? Many times people will respond that because I want to go to Jannah, I want to go to paradise. The only reason why I do this is because I want to go to paradise. Imagine you went and you told your employer that the only reason why I'm here is because I want to get a paycheck. You probably want to have a job for a really long time. Right? When your employer asks you, why do you like working here? You tell them all the really nice things. I love being here, I love you, right? Oh, I love you so much. Go ahead. You say good things because you believe and you buy into the big vision. Follow what I'm saying? But for some reason, whenever we talk about our relationship in terms of proximity to God, why is it always in reference toward tangible, physical things like that in paradise? Why do we rush toward that? I'm fasting because I'm going to get this. And I'm praying because I'm going to get this. And I'm going to give in charity because God is going to reward me tenfold. Is that why we do things? Again, is there anything wrong with doing things like that? No, it's totally fine, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again gives us the incentive because he wants us to go ahead and perform our deeds and these tasks and give out our wealth in charity or whatever it may be. Again, because he knows that we are a human being who loves physical and tangible things, right? We love it. That's why God says paradise is like this, and all of those explanations about food and about, resting and family and good weather or whatever else is presented, even sort of symbolically within the ayat of the whole Quran. It's almost though that many times our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so simple and so basic that we only rely again on this, very physical, tangible, and shallow approach toward knowing him, toward understanding him, toward seeking him. A couple of days ago, we were setting up some Ramadan decorations in my home. My kids, they get really, really excited about that. They're 6 and they're 4. 6 years old and 4 years old, my 2 daughters. And they get really, really excited, and maybe some of you have seen this before. We have like this thing that gets stuck to the wall, it's like a carpet, and there's like 30 holes in it for the 30 days of Ramadan, and we also put like these gifts in for them, right? And so historically, every day we would give our kids some chocolate, which is a bad idea. And so me and my wife committed that this year, we are not going to give them any sweets during the course, maybe one on the first day, right? And then one on the last day, and and like we'll try to do our best to stick to that measure. So the other day, and again, we're like, how many people know what I'm talking about with this podcast, first of all? All right, so it's a good amount, right? If you don't, I don't know, I'll explain it to you. There's a carpet with pockets with gifts for children. So they can pull it out every day of Ramadan. So the first day we said, okay, we're gonna give them each like a small, like fun-sized Snickers bar. They got really, really excited because they're like chocolate, right? The second day, as I was here on the first night, my wife texted me and she said, is there anything in the office you can bring for the kids? Because we only have candy at home. So I found that we have these really cool stickers, like Islamic Center and NYU stickers, you know? And I was like, all right, don't worry, I got it, right? So I come back, I put the stickers into the pocket for day 2. I would wake my kids up for school, get them ready, they come downstairs, they like rush to the pocket, right? They pick it up and they're like, we don't want a sticker, Mom, where's our chocolate, right? And I was like, every day you guys can't get chocolate because, you know, like that's not good for you. My younger daughter was like very emotional about, you know, sweets. She said, I hate you, Baba. I said, why do you hate me? She said, you're giving me something so boring. I want the chocolate and I want this and I want that. And I said, no more chocolate. Like this sticker is like a really nice sticker. It has like Islamic Center and NYU brand on it. You guys should all get one. We're distributing it for free. Right? And then I was like, okay, don't worry, Baba. Even if you don't love me, like I still love you. Right? I still love you. So we're always going to respond to. Always going to respond to her. Because I know, right? Her understanding of my expression of love to her is by giving her chocolate, you know? But I know that my true love for her is not to give her too much chocolate, it's not good for her. But she completely minimized our relationship to physical and tangible things for that moment. Because that's what children do, right? When you fast forward to when you're 20, when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50, when you're 60, why do you worship God? Because I want paradise. What changed between my child's understanding of who their father is and our understanding of who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is? The only thing that changes is what it is that we want, right? No longer are we concerned about a fun-sized Snickers bar, but oh Allah, we want a really big mansion in paradise. Oh Allah, we want to have all of this really delicious food. Oh Allah, we want to sit like on these fancy couches that you speak about in the Quran. I want a river to also flow beneath me when I'm sitting down with them. Again, it's only relegated to these tangible, physical things. What I'm trying to say is that believers, we can do better. We can go a little bit deeper. And that brings me then to the third point. The first one, which suggests that there's a belief that we can physically be in the company of God. We say Muslims, we don't accept this. Number 2, that our understanding of physical proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is relegated to our proximity to God's reward. May be true, undoubtedly. But there has to be something deeper. And that brings us then to this third dimension, or this third opinion, which is founded and deduced via numerous verses of the Quran and Ahadith of the Prophet and his family, which speak to the importance of seeking proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not at any sort of physical level, not on any sort of physical manifestation, but rather to have a presence of heart such that we feel that God is physically close to us. Not that God is physically close to us, but that we draw ourselves to Him via means of obedience, via means of prayer, of devotion, of remembrance, of supplication, such that we feel Him close to us at any and at every given moment. And that is the goal that we aspire to during the month of Ramadan. And we see this numerous times. And that famous hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he narrates about Abu Bakr, according to other opinions, different companions of his. He says, "O Abu Bakr, worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as though you see Him, for even though you do not see Him, you see Him." And another report that states that Ali Zayn al-Abidin, the great grandson of the Prophet of God sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of his companions narrates that every day when I saw Ali Zayn al-Abidin in a state of worship and obedience, he was raising his hands and supplicating to God as though God was standing right in front of him. Of course, not physically. That sort of presence of mind and that sort of presence of heart. And even when it comes toward our acts of charity, we have traditions within our reports that tell us about the fact that when we give a charity, and that when we take something out of our pocket to give it to the homeless person who's begging right at the moment when you get outside of the train station to walk to the center, that you should see your hand and that wealth in your hand, putting it in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As if again to feel the presence that you're performing a deed truly seeking this notion of His proximity. When we perform these deeds that we do and these acts of devotion and seek towards serving others and acting in this way that manifests all of these most beautiful qualities during these nights and days during the holy month of Ramadan, as much as we are incentivized toward getting something in return for what it is that we're offering, think about how we can maximize our deed by not thinking about solely what is the return, but thinking about a gift that's far greater. And that is truly, again, understanding and knowing and fulfilling our responsibilities to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when that man, he comes to the messenger, alayhi salam, I'll conclude with this, and he says, Ya Rasulullah, أَرَبُّكَ بَعِيدٌ فَأُنَادِي أَوْ قَرِيبٌ فَأُنَاجِي. That, oh, messenger of Allah, are you so, is your God so far away that I need to call out to Him? Or is He so close that I can whisper to Him? To which He responds in the verse of the Holy Quran, فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, that surely I am near. Understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is vigilant over our actions. And He sees what's in our heart. And He's not concerned solely with us receiving the reward tenfold, for instance, when we give in charity. But the heart that gives, with the intention of that humility and sincerity that God is seeking, is worth far greater than the 10 times reward that you get for every dollar that you give. Don't see it as a financial investment to support 23 million displaced people in Afghanistan. Don't see it as, I'm going to give this money because Allah is going to help me financially later on in my life when I need it. You can, but try to find something deeper. And that is in performing this deed because I want to have that sense of mindfulness and presence and feeling devotion and servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because that's the way He ought to be served. And that's the way that He ought to be worshipped. And it's my responsibility as a believer, particularly during this month, for seeking closeness to God, and I can do so by means of my support for this important cause, beginning of this night, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq and to give us the ability and potential to be amongst those who serve others, and particularly to eradicate all of the challenges and difficulties on the sun.
Tonight we're hosting a special iftar with Islamic Relief USA. After Maghrib, inshallah, we're going to ask you all to just go back to sitting. Our volunteers will put out sheets and we can sit around it. Right now, dates are being passed out. When the adhan is called, you can break your fast at that time. There's still about 5 or 6 minutes until Maghrib comes in. Immediately after Maghrib, we're going to serve food to you seated. So for those who have been here for the last few days, we're not going to line up to get food, but it's going to be brought to you. Given the numbers of people that are showing up, we're not going to have our typical table and chair setup as we normally would for this dinner in Ramadan's past. If you've been here at DIC for some years now. Once the program begins again, we'll ask everyone if you could just be as present as possible, mindful as possible. We're coming tonight to, inshallah, do what we can to support our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan. And Allah makes it easy for them. So we want to be here with an open heart, with a lot of love. Right? That motivation is not rooted in anything self-serving, as Sheikh Fahad said, but with real mahabba, real hope. That you're giving is not to make you feel better, but you're giving is to make somebody else's life a little bit better, inshallah. So if you want to join me in making a dua, just as Maghrib comes upon us in our tradition, we're taught that as the fasting person breaks their fast, there's a barakah that's there.
The adhan is called, there's barakah. In between the adhan and the iqamah, these are times where dua is more readily accepted. And so you want to turn with a deep conviction that Allah is not simply hearing and listening, but accepting every word. We pray, inshallah ta'ala, that He grants us even better than what it is that we are asking of Him. Allahumma ameen. اللهم لك الحمد كما ينبغي لوجهك وعظيم سلطانك لك الحمد حمدا طاهرا طيبا مباركا فيه الى يوم الدين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد في الاولين وفي الاخرين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم إنك عفو كريم تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين اللهم اجعلنا من المخلصين. We begin this supplication in your name, Ya Allah, and beseech you to send your choicest salutations upon your most beloved, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. We ask that you shower your infinite mercy upon this gathering, granting each and every one who is present here and our loved ones only the best in this world and the best in the next. We ask, Ya Allah, that if all of us are meant to be together only at this time, at this place, whether we are young or old, male or female, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our social class, our country of origin, our cultural heritage, whether we are Muslim or come from a different walk of life, Ya Rabbi, if our individual hearts are meant to be in the presence of all of their hearts that are gathered here only at this time, at this place, then gather us all together again in the best of places in the world beyond this one. Ya Allah, Ya Rahim, Ya Arham Ar-Rahimeen. We have come tonight to support our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan who are going through great difficulty. Shower upon them and us your infinite mercy and grant all of us only the best in this world and the best in the next. Guide the footsteps of our brothers and sisters facing this deep affliction and deepen us in our trust, love, and care for them and each other so that we might come together to help them at this time. Send them only those who will be their helpers and supporters, and protect them from any further affliction, anxiety, or anguish. Open their hearts to receive all of the love that we are sending them on this day, and envelop them in your divine love always, Ya Wadud. Grant them peace, relax their fears, and remove from them any impediment that keeps them from doing all that they are able to do. The burdens of life sometimes seem too heavy to bear. The anxiety and anguish that sits inside of us feels bigger at times than the world around us. We seem to be surrounded by a darkness that is impenetrable. Today we ask you, for the sake of our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan who need us to be better than ourselves, better than our best, to give us courage. Our struggles are real, but your promise is true. Indeed, with hardship, there always comes ease. Remove from our hearts any fears or inhibitions, and replace them with an ever-increasing boldness to live each moment as best as we can. Fill our hearts with a fire of your love and a desire for nothing less than justice for all. Make us the conveyors of truth, the purveyors of truth, the couriers, the carriers, the upholders of truth. Let us not be those who are swayed by false fulfillment, but make us, Ya Allah, from amongst those who taste true contentment. Let us never be those with a strong fear of loss in this world or hope of gaining some portion of it keeps us from speaking out and hearing the truth that we yearn for. Keep us, Ya Allah, from being silent when others lie, and help us to never lie to ourselves consciously or unconsciously. Put strength into our voices and grant us the courage to express our feelings, to let those that we love know how valuable they are to us, to seek forgiveness from those that we have wronged, and to exert mercy towards those who have wronged us. Bring people into our lives that we love so much that our love for them moves us to be courageous and never foolish. People who we love so much that our dedication to their well-being is rooted in wisdom and mindfulness. Make us people who find strength through selflessness, not selfishness, sincerity, and never self-centeredness. Help us to see this world always through hearts that are drawn towards goodness, to silence fear and abolish anxiety, to overpower indifference and break away from greed, to eliminate arrogance and defeat racism, to be bold enough to ask of you to make us those who do only that which is good. Help us to be above what is simply normal and to never compromise on who it is that we are for those who only accept us when we become that which we are not. Forgive us when we unknowingly or knowingly become the cause of unwanted compromise in the lives of those around us and hurt others in ways that at times we don't even realize it. Make us those who are never embarrassed by our faith, nor those who embarrass others because of the faith they choose to practice. Help us to see our race, our heritage, our class, our gender as a means of strength and never something that we wish wasn't a part of us. Make us outstanding by not being afraid to stand out, to be firm and resolved in our conviction and values, and any distinction and distinguishing of ourselves to be rooted only in love. Setting ourselves apart does not mean we have to be distant from other hearts. And help us to carry you, Ya Allah, in our hearts always. Help us to never fear the path of truth for the lack of people walking on it. And bless us with leaders to follow who walk firmly upon it. Let our unity be not tied to uniformity of the external, but instead make us brothers and sisters of all colors in our unity based off of a uniformity of our values and hearts. Remove from our hearts any negative thoughts of others, and help us to never partake in acts of injustice against people of any background. Even when no one else speaks, help us to always speak against any oppression. And let tonight, Ya Allah, be a night that this community speaks loudly as to how deeply it loves our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan, and will not take for granted any of the gifts that you have bestowed to us, but will give and give and give of what we have, knowing that there are so many right now who have nothing. Ya Allah, make us a means of benefit for your creation. Love your creation through us. Be gentle to them through us. Increase them in strength through us. Give them courage through us. Help them grow through us. Endow them with confidence through us. Fill them with sincerity through us. Protect them always through us. And through us, bring good and benefit to the rest of this world. Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, most merciful of those who show mercy. Let our anger be only at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that we will work for justice, equality, and peace. Let our tears shed only for those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, and conflict, so that we will reach out our hands to comfort them and change their pain into joy. And let our successes be many as we make a difference in this world by doing the things which others say cannot be done. For our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan, their loved ones, their family members, and all those who are facing any type of hardship in the world at this time, we simply ask, Ya Allah, for peace. Ya Allah, let us come tonight to fulfill the intention for which we came. And let not any heart that is assembled here in this gathering undermine the importance of the impact that it can bring and the levels of giving from their wealth, but also the barakah being enhanced. Increase us in love, Ya Rabbi, for our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan. Open our hearts to hear the words of everyone who will stand at this podium and to be ever present, ever awake. Let our hearts be hearts that have benefited from Ramadan. And let us not leave from this place until we have achieved what it was that we intended, that brought us here in the first place. Protect us always from hearts that are not humble, tongues that are not wise, and eyes that have forgotten how to cry. Forgive us for our shortcomings and guide and bless us all. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
And I couldn't get into Myanmar, and the Islamic relief personnel that were with me, they also were not going into Myanmar, because anything that looked remotely Muslim was just being literally torched at the borders. And out of all of us, the one person who went into Myanmar, despite the liability, the risk to ensure that the funds that we were raising for the people there were getting to them, their food and provision, was our brother Anwar Khan. not asking his employees, his staff, his volunteers, and not willing to put them at risk, but he himself went into that space knowing the danger to himself, but still taking it on because that's the kind of person he is. And you can ask the people from Islamic Relief here, I tried really hard to go to Afghanistan. Every part of me wanted to go there, to be there, and the liabilities again were too high. That they literally said to me, there's a good chance that you'll get killed. But where I couldn't go and others were not going, you literally see in the images that Anwar is still sitting there in this place with people in their time of need. And I want you to listen to what he's saying to you with an understanding that it's not that these are people that don't have families that they're leaving behind to go to these conflict zones. And these are not people who are smart enough to do other things. They're beyond brilliant, but they have the ethics, the values, and the dedication to go and fulfill communal obligation on our behalf, put themselves in harm's way again and again and again, simply because they're motivated by real love. And all I want you to do is listen to him and try to channel some of that love. We're at about 180,000 plus right now. People want to write checks. You can write them out to Islamic Relief USA. You can give credit card donations at the QR code when you scan. You can leave the checks outside, give them to myself, to any of our volunteers. If you want to donate by stock, there's stock opportunities. Let me know. You can corporate gift match through your companies as well. We've already had people who work for Google donate and match it. We've had other people who have donor advised funds contribute. Anything that you want to do, we'll figure it out. But don't leave tonight without donating something. Whether that's $1, $1,000, $10,000, and don't leave without taking the link and sharing it with other people. Because whatever is built up inside of you that's making that hard, you got to just squash that and understand that at the other end of it, there's people who literally, whether the sun is up or down, they don't have anything to eat right now. And they're doing that in the midst of a destabilized country with individuals whose greed makes them value profits over people. And they could care less what's happening to all of these people right now. So listen to this man who has time and time again left his family behind and gone into the face of danger to ensure that people who have nothing are in a space where they realize that the world has not forgotten them. And ask Allah to channel in your own dua that kind of love tonight so that we can be a reason people have hope in this world and not the reason that they might dread it. You join me in welcoming our brother Anwar to the mic, inshallah.
I'm very humbled of speaking after three sheikhs. Sheikh Fiaz, who spoke to us before Maghrib. And by the way, I do go back to the 90s with Imam Sahib Webb. I'm going to come back to that later. But Imam Khalid Latif, the first time I met him, I believe was at an iftar in NYU about a decade ago for Syria. Then in 2017, we were hearing stories of a genocide going on in Myanmar. I wanted to go with a team of 3 people. They wouldn't let me go. So I went by myself. Imam Khalid wanted to come in, but our Bangladesh office, they weren't able to go in and they weren't able to get him in. I went in with a shaved head because I'd just come back from Hajj. So with a light-skinned head, Ralph Lauren clothes, I looked like a tourist. I did the whole tourist thing in Yangon, then got permission from the government of Myanmar to go in. I went the next year into Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh with Imam Khalid. And this woman cried. She was wearing the same clothes that she was assaulted in the year before. We changed our clothes at least every Eid. She couldn't change the clothes that her honor was taken a year before. Imam Khalid and me heard about her children were killed, husband killed, and then cut into pieces. And then As she walked away, her home was burnt. And at this time, Imam Khalid started the dua for 20 minutes. And she's crying in the dua. And she's feeling the dua. And I'm feeling the dua. He wanted to go to Afghanistan right now. For security reasons, it was nearly, we didn't think he was able to do it. Inshallah, we will work with him and try to send him later. But we don't normally send imams to conflict zones. I want to be clear, we don't. 12 of our brothers and sisters, men and women, Muslim and Christian and other faiths, have died to deliver the aid that you've helped to give us over the last 20 years. That's over a dozen are buried in different continents, in different countries. There are people who are fasting this Ramadan in Afghanistan, not because they want to, but because they have to. They don't have enough to have their normal meals. Some of them may not have enough for suhoor and for iftar. I remember a few years ago in Somalia, there were questions, there was fatwas that were given. Am I fasting if I have no food or no water to break the fast? Does my fast count? So here in Afghanistan, I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back. After I went to Myanmar in 2017, I went to Myanmar, I went to Sri Lanka, I went to Srebrenica. 2 days later, I had a cardiac arrest in London Heathrow. And he didn't mention this, I'm actually a heart patient. So I went to Yemen after, I was with you in Cox's Bazar, Yemen after that in 2019, Ethiopia on the front lines, 250 people died the day after I left that area. And our brothers and sisters in Ethiopia are still working on the front line today. Please remember our brothers and sisters in Ethiopia, in Afghanistan, in Yemen, and all these places around the world. But here for Afghanistan, why didn't I want to go? Because I knew it would break my heart. In 2000, December 2000, 500 children starved and froze to death of exposure in Herat in Western Afghanistan after 5 years of the Taliban, fourth year, I think, of the Taliban being in charge and us imposing sanctions. They died. As a result of that, in April 2001, I went to Afghanistan and that helped to start the seed money. Imam Sahib, can you give me a wave? So we asked him in April of 2001, can you help us fundraising for Afghanistan? And he did. It's breaking my heart that 22 years later, 21 years later, I'm asking you for starving children in Afghanistan. As soon as I saw those images of the people dropping off the plane on August 15th, I said, this is an atrocity. And now they're going to put sanctions and now they're going to starve the kids. There were 10 children buried regularly in Jalozai refugee camp in Pakistan from Afghanistan in 2001. This was the size of the average grave, shoeboxes. I'm not talking about inside Afghanistan. You saw some pictures at the end of the video of malnourished kids. We deliberately don't want to show you starving kids because we don't think that they have to starve before we give money. That's not the way we do it. That's not dignified. But let me tell you about that ward. It's called stage 1. These are children that cannot eat with their mouth. That malnutrition, the malnourishment is so severe. Their mothers were sleeping on the floor. 2 to 3 babies were in a bed designed for one. How are you going to do hygiene with 2, 3 babies in a bed? Mothers are sleeping on concrete floors. And they're lucky because in the past, I was told they would have died in their villages. It wasn't safe enough to come to Kabul. So now they're getting some treatment and they're getting IV, and that's the way that they're staying alive. Then if they survive stage 1, then they go to the room next door, stage 2. Stage 2 is when they can eat with their mouth, but they have big bellies. For those of you who know, when you see children with big bellies who are starving, it's because it's the gas. It's not because they have too much food. It's the gas in there that makes their stomach. Again, we didn't want to show those pictures too much to you today. Stage 3 is when they go home. with a little bit of food, and we hope they'll get better. How are they going to get better if there's not enough food? When I mentioned this, I'm also on the board of World Food Program USA. I mentioned this in a meeting with the head of World Food Program Asia and World Food Program Afghanistan. She was visiting Kabul. And the head of World Food Program Asia said to me, Anwar, there's going to be 1 million kids in that room in stage one. That's what Imam Khalid Latif was talking about earlier. We're projecting 1 million kids. Now, the UN World Food Program asked for 2.4 billion. The UN asked for 4.4 billion. We got less than half of that pledged. And these are not like the pledges at your masjid. A lot of these pledges that are done in international conferences, the money never comes. So at the maximum, 50% of the essential aid is going to get there. So what happens when 50% aid is missing? Let me tell you. You pick which one of your kids is going to eat and which one isn't. First, you go down and you give 50% food to everyone. You deny yourself food and your wife or your spouse, and you give your kids what you can, but then there isn't enough and it goes down to 50%. I asked, you saw the video of me standing in the snow. I asked one of the men who was standing there, and like me, no jacket, no woolen hat, no gloves. Why have you been standing in the snow for 2 hours waiting for this food? He said, I'm desperate. I haven't earned any money since August. I'm giving my children 40% of the food. That means 60% is missing. I said, what would happen if you didn't get this food today for a month? We'd go down to 20%. Now, let me ask you a question. How much food do we normally eat? And what is 20% of what we normally eat? Is it either sahur or iftar? It's not. It's not. So they won't have enough for sahur or iftar. I went to another village. They said, Anwar, everybody in this village has buried someone in the war in the last 20 years. Everyone. And there was a sign saying MVP wasn't most valuable player, it was most vulnerable people. I said, what does that mean? I don't know if any of you noticed in the video, every child I was with was either mentally or physically or mentally and physically disabled. We weren't giving food to hungry kids. No, you have to be mentally disabled, physically disabled, or both, or your father had to die to be MVP. When 98% of the country is food insecure. 97% will be pushed into extreme poverty in the next few months by the end of June 2022. 95% are facing unprecedented levels of hunger administered with widespread food shortages. Now, the food I was distributing came from Russia. This crisis in Russia, Ukraine, is not only taking the lives of a lot of people over there, it's also causing food shortages around the world. Russia and Ukraine are bread baskets for the world. So imagine you're in Afghanistan. There's a famine, it takes 3 years to overcome a famine. You've gone through 3 famine in 5 years. You're hungry. You're not getting much food. International aid stops after August 15th. USAID, others are stopping sending food. The INGOs that were working there were forced to pull out because they were worried they might be prosecuted. Now you can't get money in the country to feed the people. And if you can, you can't take more than a certain amount every week out of the bank because of the bank liquidity problems. You see you're starving kids, but you haven't been able to work since the change in government on August 15th. And now to add it, and then it's cold. And then the first day it was cold, the next day it was raining in the distribution, and the last distribution you saw was done in the snow. You can't make this stuff up. And then on top of that, famine, on top of that, snow, on top of that, that food, if you can get it from Russia, Ukraine, is now much more expensive. The price of food we're distributing is going up. How many of you know that the price of food that you buy in your family has gone up over the last few months? Now imagine if that went up and you had nobody in the family working, what would you do? The average person I spoke to had a job was feeding 23 people. Imam Khalid, there's a hadith, what's enough for one is enough for two, what's enough for two is enough for three. What's enough for one has to be enough for 23 now. Do the math. Do the math. You saw the sister cry when I was talking to her, the widow. We didn't get a chance to show you the whole video. Her husband was killed in a bomb attack. And one of her sons was physically disabled in that attack. Then another son was born with a deformity. So she has 3 sons, 2 of them are disabled, and 1 daughter. I said, what difference does it make when we're supporting you with the orphan sponsorship program? She said, before I had 3 walls, and then I would have a curtain, and that didn't do a good job of keeping the snow out. Now I have 4 walls. Before, when we were cold in the winter, we put hot water in a bucket, and all of us, 5 of us, would put our feet under a little blanket to keep our feet warm as long as we could. Now we have a heating system. Alhamdulillah. Now we're eating 3 meals a day. Alhamdulillah. Do you have any comment for me? Yeah, you haven't given us any money for 6 months. This is what happens when we're not allowed to send the money. She said, I'm only surviving on $14 a month. It's not enough. She said, I'm Hazara. And I think the guys in the hospital of Taliban, they won't allow me to get medical care. And I said, to be honest, I've been in those hospitals. There isn't medicine. The labs aren't working and there isn't medicine. It doesn't matter what ethnicity, what sect you are, they're denying so many people. She showed me the medical charts and said, I need to help my sons. She doesn't have either money for food or medicine, but she was saying when she did, she'd have to make those choices. The good news is I've been told that the money's now getting in there. We don't know how long it's going to get in there for. So take this opportunity today to get 70 times the reward to donate, inshallah, whether you're online or you're here. And I want to be very clear to you. Every donation makes a difference. I've been doing this as an employee of Islamic Relief for 29 years. And the biggest donations I received, one of the biggest donations I received was in Houston, when a man that got $12 from Zakah heard me talking about Bosnia and gave $8, which is 75% of what he had, and said, it's enough for me to eat for $4. The guy from the masjid told him off. We gave you the $12 for you to eat. He said, no, they need it more than me. When I was in South Central Los Angeles, and I asked him for help in 1994, they gave me their bus money and they walked home. Some of them had holes in their pants and they walked home. Others were arguing with me to take the bean pie. I said, brother, I don't want the bean pie. It's for the people of Bosnia. He said, you can't leave without getting something. So I'm asking you, in this blessed month of Ramadan, please remember the people in Afghanistan and other countries that are fasting, not just because they want to, but because they have to. I remember a woman in Pakistan when I asked her, what difference does this orphan sponsorship make? I no longer have to ask my neighbors for basi food, for stale food. I lied and told them it's for my chickens. It's not for my chickens, it's for my kids. My kids are eating stale food from a few days. Now I don't have to do that. Now we're fasting this Ramadan because we want to, not because we have to. And please remember, we have 300 staff in Islamic Relief Afghanistan. We had 220 on August 15th. As a result of the money we sent there, we sent the Imam Khalid 3 million at the end of last year, at the end. As a result of that money going and the work that you saw on video, the UN decided to give us $22 million. Last week, we signed an agreement to help over 180,000 people in Afghanistan to give them money to grow their own crops if they can. So the seed money you give us gets multiplied. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you 70 to infinite times the reward. And I want to be clear, with the exception of Imam Khalid, I don't want any of you going there. I got people going, I got people who are there. They know Farsi, they know Dari, they know Pashto, they know every language. They're from every ethnicity, every sect. They're Hazara, they're Pashtun, they're all of them. Do you know what they ask from you? Two things. Your du'as and your money. I'm going to add to that. I want you to be the voice of them, to advocate for them. There's three things. No money, no mission. So please give whatever you can today. If you can give 100,000, give 100,000. If you can give $100 or $1, you gave it, but you give it out of Iman. Not because of me, because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second, no mission, no mission. We stopped our work for 1 month in Afghanistan until we got a general license. We didn't want to go to jail. We didn't want to close every Islamic relief chapter around the world because of this. But after 1 month, we got it. I don't know how long this window is open. So please give as quickly as you can. And the third thing is to be witness. I need you to go out there and not just to raise money. I want you to be advocate for the people of Afghanistan whose voices are not being heard. We're not seeing them. I came back from Afghanistan in January. I wanted to talk about it. And in February, you saw what happened in Ukraine. We don't want to talk about Afghanistan anymore. We want to talk about Ukraine. I came back from Ethiopia where 250 people died in the area. I was the day before. And a couple of days later, August 15th happened. We don't want to talk about Ethiopia. We wanted to talk about Afghanistan. Please care and love the people in Ukraine, in Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Palestine, everywhere around the world. But I'm asking you tonight, do your best for the people in Afghanistan. And I'm going to finish with this. Please pray for the dozen Islamic relief staff that died around the world, left behind their mothers, their widows, and their orphan children. Please pray for them. Islamic.
People want to just stay seated. We're going to wrap up the program, but Sheikh Sahib just told me that, mashallah, there's a sister who wants to take her shahada right now. So it'd be great if everyone can stick around to be a part of that. Be increase in the barakah with your presence here, and it's a Mubarak gathering. And she'll be coming up in a couple of minutes, inshallah. Our sister Anjani is going to be joining us. Yeah. And so just to close out, before we break for Isha and we walk our sister through the Shahada, I want you to just be here with real love. You want to come? Yeah. I want you to think about a couple of different things. One, we're really blessed as a community, alhamdulillah. And you want to be able to poise yourself in a way that asks the question, why did Allah give to you what it is that you have? And people ask me why I go to these places, to visit people, to be with them. One, because I love each of you so much. And I want you to know that it doesn't take a lot to be with people in their struggle. And two, to be able to create opportunities for us as a community to leverage what it is that we have, to be with people in their time of need. I don't believe God gave me a platform to be self-serving. And I say it with love. I don't believe God gave you all your skills and credentials. I don't believe he's given you this blessed community. I don't believe he's given you access to what it is you have access to for you to use it just for yourself. And I want you to think right now with real love, real mahabba, because that's what it has to be. How you might have to adapt a little bit in order for somebody else to have something that just by virtue of what you and I might have access to it. You break the spirit of entitlement. I sat with somebody a couple of days ago to say, we're going to raise money for Afghanistan. And they said, why should we be raising money when this government has usurped wealth from those people? And I said, remember who your teacher is, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that you don't want to take examples from the worst of humanity. You don't want to fall into a place where you make your decisions based off of the ugliest parts of people. But if somebody else exerts darkness and they move in a place where they can validate their egocentricity and greed, we have to come with that much more love. I had a student here some years ago when we were raising money for the people of Gaza. May Allah make things easy for them and end the occupation taking place there. And after Ramadan, I still noticed she wasn't eating so much food. A student, 19 years old, and I got worried. Did you have some financial issues? Father lost a job, mother lost a job. When I asked her if everything's okay, she said things are fine. And I said, then why aren't you eating so much? And she said the same hadith that Anwar said to us. Aren't you the one that taught us that food for one is enough for two and food for two is enough for four? The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. I said, yes. And she said, these last few weeks since Ramadan, where I haven't been eating so much, I've been eating all my meals with my brothers and sisters in Palestine. That every dollar that she saved, she was just giving to those who didn't have anything. And you got to start to think like that, about what it really means to give with love, about what it means to embrace your light, to be a source of luminosity. We, alhamdulillah, have broken $200,000. We're at, I think, 204,000, and I'll pull it up right now to give you an idea. We're at 210,000, alhamdulillah. We want to try to raise as much as we can. The numbers don't make a difference as such, because on the receiving end of it, there's just going to be that many more people who are going to still need what we can give to them. And you can't undermine the value of each heart, of each person. If you or your family can give $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, give it. Allow for yourself to not be in a place where your giving is to make yourself feel better. I literally, while Anwar was talking, texted the link to 1,200 people in my phone book. Some of you got it from me. Some of you are going to delete it. Then you are not paying attention to what this man was saying. Some of you are going to choose to take 5 minutes to take that link and send it to everybody else. Statistically, sharing a link averages $36 per share. Now, that means that the few hundred people that were in this room tonight, if all of us just pushed it with love, you would see a mobilization of hearts unlike anything else. And our tradition teaches us to follow bad deeds with good ones. When we commit it, you want to deepen through love to follow somebody else's misdeeds with good deeds that the world is sorely in need of. Because it takes just a little bit of light to push away darkness. And what people right now need is for you to recognize your own beauty, your own capacity, your own ability to be a source of light. You don't want to let the doubt get in the way. Give what you can. Launchgood.com/food for Afghanistan. The QR codes are going to pop up every so often here. And we want you to share it, spread it. We're going to be raising money through the end of the month. And the last thing I'm going to say before I pass it to Sheikh Sahib to walk our sister Anjani through their Shahada, I'm so proud of this community. And I want you to think about what it is that we've achieved. $210,000 is not one person writing a check, but you can go and look, and it's $210,000 given by 2,900 donors. And you do the math on that. It's not one person writing a $100,000 check, but literally thousands of people giving $1, $5, $10. So don't undermine it, give it. On the 16th, we're going to be hosting a part 2 to this. Our students are going to host an event that's called Fastathon. Many of you are probably familiar with the concept, especially if you're a little bit older. The proceeds are going to go towards this cause as well. The idea is to raise awareness of Ramadan, but to also have contributions given in charity, where people who are not Muslim will fast in solidarity, sign a pledge that what they would have spent on food that day, they go towards the cause. So step one that you can do after you've contributed and shared the link, when we advertise that, get your colleagues, your friends, your peers to pledge. And part 2 to that is to have sponsors, like a marathon, where you would run for cancer and someone would sponsor every mile you go. For every person that's fasting, we would sponsor $1 for every person fasting, $5 for every person fasting. If you have the capacity to do that, step up and do it. But just make sure you're doing what you can. This is a month where our Prophet was more generous than at any other time, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. You want to be in a place where you see the transformative nature of your fast, that you can now see it in what it is that it's bringing you to do. So make good choices in this regard. Keep our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan in your thoughts and your prayers.